Hey, we'll wait for 1 more minute before we get started. Let's give 1 more minute. So any questions in the past thing before we get started for today? Any questions or doubts or something before we get started for today's class?
Sir, I have some doubts on DB2 itself only. The thing is that, I have almost some 10 years of experience. 10 years of experience, how can I can put DB2? I mean, I'm completely working in mainframes itself only. So I just want to move to change of these things to DB2 UDB.
Yeah,
So
see,
is
like
it
what?
can I keep this, and what is the expectation that I can expect payment related? I mean, amount salary wise, how much I can expect? I mean, what
Yeah,
I'm planning, this is the doubts I have. Could you please explain me in this way how we can move forward?
yeah. So yeah, I mean, most of the people who come to this course are from mainframes background only, basically. So what most of the people do, they keep a what is a combination of experience of mainframes and DB2 UDB. So you can put
Okay.
something like the relevant experience, something around. You can put 10 years on mainframes, and you can also say that you're parallelly supporting the DB2 and LW for 4 years or something, basically.
Okay.
Okay, and salary and other things I'll discuss with you offline. Okay,
Okay. Fine.
I'll call you sometime back to discuss those things. Okay.
Fine, sir. Fine, sir.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure. So, anything else apart from this question?
Nothing from my side.
Nothing from your side. Anyone else having anything before we get started? Okay. Nothing, right? Okay. So we'll get started. Okay. Just to recap the things what we are discussing yesterday. Till now, I mean, we are going in a very slow pace. But what all things we discussed is we have seen like what are the versions of DB2. We have seen like what are the products of DB2. We have seen like what is the architecture of DB2 at very high level. There are a lot of few other things which you need to understand. I will teach you. Don't worry about the architecture. Okay. And we have seen very basic commands of Linux till now, basically. Okay, so those are the things which we have covered. And yesterday I have shown you something about the Linux file system, just the basic at a very high level. So I'll just redraw it again, just for recap kind of thing. And today we'll see like how to install DB2 on Linux. We'll see how to create instance. So the class is important. So if you're stuck somewhere or if you're not understanding, let me know. Don't feel shy or something. Okay. Just before getting started, how to install DB2 on Linux. I told you yesterday, like the root file system is a slash will be there on Linux, which we call it as a root file system. Under slash, you will have a lot of other things like home. Home is a place where your user home directories will be there. We have something called OPT, where all the software installations will be there. OPT, when the writing is not good. Okay. And we have a lot of other things. Okay, like etc, bin, temp kind of thing. But these two are the things which are important for DB2 cards. Okay. Any user which you create, they will be created under home. Let's say I'm creating a user by name Raju, which we have discussed yesterday. So it will be created under Raju. I told you the path will be /home/Raju. So this is what we have discussed yesterday. So if you want to just see the home directory, these home directories are important because as we go on, you should understand this. So this is the home directory for this one. Okay. So let's say if a different user I have created here by name Ravi or something, basically. So what will be the home directory of Ravi? Is the same thing. The home directory for Ravi is /home/Ravi. Okay. So any user which you create on Linux platform or Unix platform or AX platform or Solaris, anything, the users will be created under /home. And these are the paths which will be there. So if I log in as Raju, if I create a file or if I store something, it will be created under this directory. Or if I know the password for Ravi, if I log in as Ravi, how to log in with the user? Just try to give the username and password. You will be into that user. And by default, if I log in as Raju, I'll be in this home directory. On the same lines, if I log in through Ravi, I'll be under this home directory, basically. Okay. So this is very basic stuff. I just want to be clear before we start DB2 installation on Linux, basically. Okay. The second important thing which I told yesterday is basically if you install DB2 on Linux, it will be stored under OPT. OPT is the location where DB2 will be installed. Under OPT, a directory will be created. The name of the directory will be IBM. So it will be created directly by name IBM. Under IBM, a directory will be created by name DB2. So I'll write it clearly, don't worry about it. Under DB2, it creates a directory depends upon your version. So if you're installing version 9.7, a version 9.7 directory will be created. If you install 10.5, 10.5 will be created. So let's take an example of 9.7. So it creates a directory by name 9.7. So this is the path where your DB2 installation will be there by default. Okay, if you want the complete path in a single thing, which we have seen yesterday, the complete path is OPT IBM DB2 v 9.7. So this is the path where your DB2 will be installed. Okay, so clear about this before we move forward. Okay, clear. Okay. So if you want to make a note of it, make a note of it quickly. I'll give you 1 minute to make a note of it. Then we'll get started with the today's class. Done? Okay, so we'll get started with the today's things. Okay, I have written somewhere about what all things which we will discuss today. Okay, so these are the things which we'll discuss today basically. So the first thing, okay, shucks, okay, just important. So the first thing which we'll see is to how to install DB2 on Linux. Then we'll see how to create instances. I'll tell you what is instance and other things, and we'll see like how to start. These topics are very much important, so try to be understand these topics. Okay. First, before going for installation of DB2 installation on Linux, I'll tell you one more thing which you should be clear. Okay, so in Windows you can write a script and you can execute a script on the same way as in Linux also. Basically, I think Linux is for people who are new to Linux. In Linux also we have some scripts which we call it as shell scripts basically. Okay, shell scripts are nothing but they are the scripts which are having some commands basically, which are having some Linux commands. Okay, you need not know how to write the scripts and other things. The only thing which you need to understand is how to run the shell scripts basically. I'll show you how to run it. There are two different ways in which you can run the shell scripts basically. In Linux, it's very easy. The first way is when you're running it, you have to run sh followed by the file name which you want to run. Okay, so this is the first way in which you can run the shell scripts in Linux. Sh is nothing but a shell followed by the file name which script you want to run. Okay, the second way in which you can run the shell scripts in Linux is / the file name. So most of the scripts which you will be getting a lot of scripts to run in future. So how to run it? Okay, so the first way is to use sh followed by the file name which you want to run. This is one way in which you can run the shell script. The second way is / by the file name. Most of the people they follow the latter mechanism. So but you can write both the things basically. Okay, so if you're wondering what are shell scripts are nothing but it's a small script or it's a script where which will be having all the Linux commands internally basically. Okay, simple thing. I want to run a backup command, and backup it has a command basically. Okay, I cannot sit and run the backup command on all the 500 servers which I'm supporting. Okay, can I write a simple script and execute it, and or can I write a simple script and schedule it basically? Yes, I can do that. So the script can be run. So how to run those scripts? Simple is sh followed by the file name or / with the file name. Okay, just keep this in mind. We'll see when we are trying to do DB2 installation on Linux basically. Okay, so just make a quick note of it. I'll give you 1 minute. Then we can start with the DB2 installation on Linux. Okay, so we'll see how to start it basically. Okay, I'll move to the Linux server. Just let me go to the Linux. Okay, let me go to the Linux server. So I open my Linux server. Okay, or I'll open a new session. So as I told you, my user ID and password is 6. My user ID is root, my password is red hat. I typed it wrong. Crap. Okay, so I log on to my server. Okay, just I'll show you the software files which I copied. Okay, okay, let's see the simple thing. So don't worry about all the softwares. I just copied the simple thing. So what normally happens, you will get the softwares from IBM website, or someone from your company will download the software and they'll copy it to some location basically. Okay, I copied the softwares on the VMware machine. So if you want to play with it, you can also play with it. Basically, I copied the softwares for 9.7, 10.5, and 10.1 also. So if you want to install 10.5, you are good. But remember, the installation steps will be same for all the versions. If you're doing it for 9.7 or if you're doing it for 10.5, the way you install it or the commands which you run it is same. Okay, so but it's always the commands won't change. The commands or the procedure is same basically. Okay, so people normally ask me a question like from where I can get the softwares. You can get the softwares. You can download the software from the IBM website. Okay, or someone from your company will download the softwares for you. They will get the license for you and they'll copy it to the servers which you want. Okay, but once you get the softwares, so these are the files which you will see in the softwares. Just look at these names. So once you get the software from IBM, or if someone copies you the the software, these are the scripts which you will see in the software basically. Okay, I told you like how to download the software in the before classes, but still I'll just recap it quickly. Okay, so if you want to download the software from IBM, just go to IBM, say IBM. Linux is case sensitivity or not? See, with respect to commands, Kiran, is it with respect to commands you're asking, case sensitivity or not? Yes. So you need to run the commands in lowercase only. Don't run it in uppercase. Basically, if you run it in uppercase, it might fail. Let me try it. I never try to run it in uppercase. Okay. So you need to run the commands in lowercase only. So if you type it in uppercase, it will fail. Okay. So it's a So what do we call it as? It won't run with uppercase, so we call it as a case sensitivity, right? Basically. So commands won't run if you put it in every Linux command in small letters only, basically. Okay. Clear, Kiran? Okay. I'll give you the softwares. I prepared. I did some customization to these softwares. Okay. So the size is growing like anything. So I tried to reduce or remove some things basically. So I am trying to zip it basically. The zip. I'll compress it and upload it to today. So today I have already forwarded you the material, the basic Linux material and the DB2 starting material. You can go through it. I'll maybe within hours I will send you the software links also so that you can go to the Google Drive and download the softwares. Download and keep it ready with the next class, and so that I can help you like how to do the installations and other things. Basically, I clearly tell you how to start working with it. Basically, okay. Okay. So we'll come to this. So this is what I'm trying to say. Go to any of the, just say IBM DB2 fixed pack download or server download anything. Just go to the first link. You can see all the softwares which are available here. So if you want to just have this link with you, just keep it with you, the link. Keep the link with you, or you can open the link. You can see all the softwares. If you want to download the latest one, which is 10.5 fixed pack 5, click on this. And normally you can download the software. It depends upon which operating system you want to download. So if you want to download for Windows, go to these links. If you want to download for Linux, go to these links. For AX, go to these links. So it has all the operating systems. Let's say I want to download it for Windows 64-bit. Let me check I think mine is 64-bit. bit the Windows 64-bit here. So I'll go to Windows 64-bit option and you can download it. Or if you want to download it for Linux, just go to any of the Linux basically. So I'm going to one of the Linux. So let me click it. Okay. So you can go here, you can see a few things. I want to click on one of the link basically. So you can see, just click, check the box and say continue. So it will prompt you for username and password. So once you specify the username and password, it will allow you to download the software basically. It's as simple as that basically. Okay. So if you do, I mean, it will ask you for an IBM ID. IBM ID does not in IBM basically. You can create any ID. If you don't know, if you don't have an ID, just go to here and it will ask your first name, last name, and your email ID kind of thing. Just do those things and specify username and password. And because this is only for IBM to track like how many people are downloading the software basically, and they keep on sending you some emails kind of thing, junk emails kind of thing basically. Okay, so try to specify the username and password, give some username and password, and try to go with the download basically. Okay, you will get all these scripts only basically. So that is what I'm trying basically. Okay, so normally in companies you won't get a chance to download, be given to you by some other folks or some other teams basically. Okay, but let's assume that you got the software, so you'll see these scripts basically. Okay, so either its version is 9.7 or 10.5, you'll see the same scripts in any of the version. Or the next version which is getting ready is DB2. It's supposed to be released in the month of 2017. Okay, so if you install that option, you will be able to see these scripts only basically. Okay, let's try to understand what each script is doing basically here. So each script has its own significance. We already covered what DB2 LS does basically in the last class, but let me recap you. Tell me like how many copies of DB2 was installed. Okay, simple question. Let me write the question here basically. On a single server, can I have multiple copies of DB2 installed? So let's say this is the question. The question is 7 was installed, 7.5 also. So can I install two different versions of? So this is the question, and the answer is yes. Okay. On a single server, you can install any versions of DB2 software. So if you have a server, you can install DB2 9.7, you can install 10.5, 10.1 version of DB2 11, which is still not available, but it will come basically. Will install it on the single server basically. So remember, a single server can have multiple. Okay. Like how many versions of DB2 is installed on my server DB2 LS. So the simple command which will tell you the number of DB2 copies which are installed on the server. So just make a quick note of these things. Okay. Because nowadays a lot of people, they're trying to migrate from 9.5 to 9.7 or 9.7 to 10.5. So before migrating, or if you join some new project, you should be able to know like what was the previous version of DB2 which was installed, and on what date it was installed kind of thing basically. So if you want to get those details, db2 ls is the command which will help you to find it out basically. Okay, so I just run the command here, make a note of this. Okay, if I run the command on my server, you can see it has only one copy, which is what version of DB2 was installed, 9.7. When this was installed, it was installed on September 7, 2015. So you'll get that date and other things here basically. Okay, clear about the script, what DB2 ls does basically. So just make a note of these commands. Okay, sorry, where have I written? So just make a what to say, the notes of this command quickly. We'll move forward. I'll give you 1 minute. Okay, so we'll move further. Okay, so we'll go to the next scripts. I'll just look at the name. So this part was covered. So we'll see the next script, which is called db2 Prediction. This is important script. Okay, so the next script is db2 Prediction. So this script is, you might be knowing what are prerequisites, right? Because prerequisites means, are they meeting the basic needs or not? Okay, let's say someone has given me a software of db2 and they told me to install it. Okay, but before doing the installations, can I check whether the software is compatible for installation or not? Okay, let's say you're working on Windows 64-bit, or let's say you are working on Windows 32-bit, and someone has given you a software of someone has given you a DB2 software of 64-bit. Okay, as you know that Windows 32-bit cannot be installed. Okay, Windows 32 operating system cannot have 64-bit of softwares installed. So if you try to install the DB2 software which is a 64-bit, definitely it will fail basically. Okay, so before me trying to install the software, do we have a script which will check for the compatibilityness? So when I say compatibilityness, it will check whether the hardware requirements is met, whether it will check whether the software requirements are going to meet or not. Okay. When I say hardware requirements, it will check whether it has enough space for doing the DB2 installation. It will check whether the DB2 prerequisites like the basic softwares are already installed or not basically. Okay, simple thing in Linux, if you want to install db2, you should be having a C++ compiler basically, or we call it as a G++ compiler. Okay, with when you install Linux basically, or when you install Linux, the default G++ compiler will automatically come basically. Okay, so the db2 expects some version of G++ compiler, say 4.3 or something. It will check whether 4.3 of G++ compiler is existing or not. If it is not there, then the prerequisites will throw you an error saying that, okay, I cannot install on this server basically. Okay, so at very high level, db2 prereq check script will check whether the software can be installed or not. It will tell you whether the hardware, it will check whether it will check for the hardware compatibility. It will check for the software compatibility. Okay, if all the requirements are met, then you can install the db2 software. If some of the requirements, or at least one of the requirement is not met, basically, then you cannot install the db2 software on that server basically. Okay, so at very high level, it checks for basically hardware and software compatibility. Okay. So simple thing. This script basically, as I told you, it checks for both hardware compatibility and software compatibility. It will check whether the hardware requirements are met and whether the software requirements are met or not. Okay. So normally people run this script before doing the installations basically. So if someone has given you a software, so don't run the software by just running the main script. So try to run this script. Look whether the script is returning you any error. If it is returning you any error, which means that the software is not compatible. If it is not throwing you any error, means that the software is good for installation. Okay. So as I told you, this is a shell script. I told you already like how to run the shell scripts in Linux. You can run it in two ways. One is sh followed by this file name, or the second way is // followed by this file name. Okay. Either way you can run it, but as I told you, try to run this way. Okay, so I'll run this script. If it is throwing me some errors, which means that the software has some problems for installation. If it is not throwing any error, which means that the software is good for installation. Okay, I'll just quickly run it. You can see how to run the scripts as I told you, / the script name. So I'm running the script name. You can see that it has not thrown me any error, which means that the software is good for installation, basically. Okay, so just make a note of it. We'll move forward then, basically. So make a note of it quickly. I'll give you 1 minute. Yes, I forgot to tell you. So remember, all the installations has to be done. I mean, see, there are two types of installation. I'll tell you. I'll cover those things. You should just give me one more minute. Okay, I'll cover those things. Okay, so as someone was asking me, remember, if you want to install DB2, so we can install DB2 using two ways. One is using root, and another is not using non-root also, basically. Okay. Most of the people they follow with root only, but remember we can also install DB2 using non-root also. When I say non-root, normal user, say I can log in to my server as Raju, and I can install DB2 software basically. But remember, if I install it as non-root user ID, the software will only work for my ID basically, not for all the IDs which are present on the server basically. Okay. So if you want the software to be used by all the user IDs which are present on the server, then you need to do the installation as a root installation basically. Okay. 90% of the people they will go with the root installation only. But remember, from IBM has made a provision of installing of DB2 software using non-root also basically. Some people they ask you in the interviews, so I just want to be clear before we move forward basically. Okay. So can we do it? Can we install DB2 with non-root? Yes, definitely we can do. Let's say I have a server where 5 users are there, and if I want all the 5 users to use DB2, then better to do it with root installation. And if I want only one user ID to use the DB2, I can log on to the user and I can install DB2 for that user only specifically, basically. Okay. So it's up to you. Most of the people they go with root installation. So all the commands which I'm teaching now, assume that you have to run it from root to user ID only, basically. Okay. The prerequisites, the DB2 LS, or the commands which I will tell in future also. So let's do the root installation. Okay. So that's why you can see that the user ID which I logged in is root. If you don't know what is the user ID, just do who am I, which will tell me which user you logged in. You can see that I'm in root user ID basically. Okay. So I'm doing the root installation of DB2 basically. Okay, so we'll move forward. So till now what we have covered, we have seen what DB2 LS is, which will tell me the number of copies of DB2 which was installed on the server. Prerequisites will tell me whether it is meeting the software and hardware requirements basically. Okay, so we'll move to the next thing, how to install DB2 on Linux basically. Okay, let me just open it. Okay, so remember, DB2 on Linux basically it can install in two different ways. One, it can be installed through GUI mode, or it can be installed in silent mode or interactive mode. So there are two ways in which you can install DB2 on Linux. One is GUI mode. I think most of the people you know what is GUI, right? It's a graphical mode where a wizard will open and it will ask you it will prompt you for certain questions. You just need to click next, 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 next. So once you answer all the questions, once you answer all the questions, the DB2 installation will start basically. That is something which we call it as graphical installation of DB2 basically. Okay. The second way in which you can install DB2 on Linux is you can install it on silent mode or interactive mode. Silent mode means it won't show you any wizard. It will simply ask you some questions at the command line basically, or it keeps on asking you questions in interactive mode basically. I'll show you what is interactive mode. So it will ask you like what product you want to install, which location you want to install. You just need to give the locations. So once you give the locations, DB2 will start doing the installation. Okay, this is what we call it as silent installation or interactive installation basically. Okay, in alternative to this, we can also do a GUI installation, which is graphical installation, which means that, as I told you, a wizard will open. The wizard will ask you some questions. You keep on answering the questions. If you click next, 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 it will start the installation basically. Okay. So just make a quick note of it. If you're interested in doing the GUI installation, you need to run a script. You need to run two different scripts. For this, you need to run a script which is called Db2 Setup. So we have a script called Db2 Setup, which you need to run for doing GUI installation. On the same lines, if you want to do silent installations or interactive installations, you need to run a script which is called Db2 install. Okay, so you can see both the scripts here. You can see Db2 Setup script here. So if you look at Db2 Setup script, it's the way in which you can install Db2 using graphical. On the same way, you can see Db2 install. If you run this script, your Db2 will be installed in silent mode or interactive mode, basically. Okay. So just make a note of these two commands, or I'll just show you what happens in Db2 setup. I won't do the installation because 99% of the people, they will do the Db2 installation in silent mode or interactive mode only. People don't run it in the setup mode or the graphical mode. But I just want to show you what happens at the how to run it. So just let me quickly show you the commands and the same script, Db2 Setup. So this will take some time. I'll show you the wizard. That's all I want to show you. Okay. So let it start. Okay, I just run it. So in between, you can make a note of these commands basically. So Db2 on Linux can be installed in two ways. One is graphical, another is silent. So this is the script which you need to run for GUI, and this is the script. Just make a note of it basically. I'll show you how to install Db2 using silent mode and interactive mode, which people will follow in companies. Clear? Let me show you this. I ran the setup here, so let's see. Okay, so this is a wizard what I'm trying to do here. I ran the setup, so you need to click the install a product. So this, because in companies you won't get a chance to do using the Db2 setup thing, but this is a wizard which I'm speaking. So if you say install new, your installation will start and it will ask you a few more questions. Okay, so this is a way in which you can install Db2 in graphical mode basically. Okay. Graphical mode is people don't use in companies. People use this mode, which is called silent mode or interactive mode, for doing it basically. Okay. So let me show you for installation of Db2 using this mode basically. Okay. So let me clear it. So which script I have to run? I told you this is for graphical and this is for silent mode. So I'll run the script. I told you there are two ways. First way is DB. This is the first way in which you can run it up. Okay. The second way is to do it as / the script name. Okay. I'll follow the second method, so you can also follow the same method. I'm running it. So this script upon running will ask you some questions. So try to look at the questions. It's very simple thing. It will ask you hardly 1 or 2 questions basically. If you answer them properly, it's an interactive mode, so you have to answer them. It will just ask you what product you want to install, which location you want to install. You know which product we install. I told you about the products. We have ESC, WSC, and EEE kind of thing. And I told you the location where DB2 will be installed. By default, it will be installed in OPT IBM DB2 v9.7, which we have already discussed basically. Okay. So let me run the script and show you. So look at the question, just read the question. You can easily understand this. It says that the default directory for installation of product is OPT IBM DB2 v9.7. Remember, you can install it in the same path or you can change the path. Okay, it's your choice basically. Here, remember, on my server, I have already DB2 installed in this path. So I'll just change the path a bit. Okay, but remember, in companies, you can install the software in the same path basically. Okay, the only reason why I'm changing the path is I already have installed DB2 on this server, so I don't want to disturb the existing copy. I'll create a new copy. So it is asking me, do you want to choose a different directory to install? Yes, I want to choose a different directory. So it is asking me, enter the full path name of the installation directory. Yes, I want to install it in OPT. The same location, I'll just change it at the last, IBM DB2. I want to put the new location as 9.7 or I'll put it as new, just for my understanding purpose. Okay, I'm putting enter. So you can read the next question, which says specify one of the following keywords to install DB2 products. We have seen like what ESE is. AESE stands for Advanced Enterprise Server Edition, that came up in the latest version. ESE stands for Enterprise Server Edition, which we have already discussed basically. CO and SV stands for Connect Server basically. Okay, so we have a DB2 Connect Server basically for connecting to the mainframes boxes from DB2 LUW kind of thing basically. Okay. The next thing is WSE, which we have already discussed, which is nothing but Workgroup Server Edition. The next is EXP, which is nothing but Express Edition, which we have already seen in last classes. The next is PE, which stands for Personal Edition, okay, which we also seen. The next is Client, which means that DB2 client software will be installed. The last is RTCL, which stands for Runtime Client, basically. So if you want to install a Runtime Client version, so you have to specify RTCL. Okay. So here I am interested in Enterprise Server Edition. I told you like 95% of the people, they will go with ESE. But maybe if you want to make a note of it, just make a quick note of it, of what questions it is asking, just for your reference kind of thing. Just do it quickly. Okay. But for me, I need to specify ESE and put enter. I'll put enter once you have, just make a quick note of these things. So when you're trying to install the DB2, run the same commands. It will ask you the same questions, and you just need to answer them appropriately, as I'm doing it right now. Okay. So do it quickly. Make a note of the things. So I'll put enter now. You can see that my DB2 installation will start. Okay. So what really happens when the DB2 installation, it starts as task 1, task 2, task 3, it keeps on installing it. Okay. So almost it installs 40 tasks or 40 to 45 tasks in between. Okay. The number keeps on changing from version to version. Okay. So don't try to mug up the number of tasks which is doing. Okay. Okay, I think it failed. You can see that it failed. Measure corrected by installation. Computer installation cannot complete. Okay, I think it failed for some reason. Okay. Computer installation cannot complete the conversation. Why did it fail? Just give me 1 minute, I think. So you can see the error is there is not enough space in that disk space, which needed is this much. I think I don't have space to install it. Okay. Let me check the space. Okay, it's almost filled up. Okay. So I don't have space to install it, but okay, I just told you the process. Okay, let me try to clear up something. I created a lot of junk things. Okay. Okay, so my system does not have space, but this is the steps which you can do basically, or we can do one more thing. We can override, okay, we can remove this, but I don't want to disturb the existing thing. But remember, the steps to do it is run this script, basically db2 underscore install. So if you run this, it will ask you the same questions. If you want to change the locations, what we have discussed basically, be 9.7 underscore n or something. Which one? ESC, again it will fail because we don't have the space, but these are the steps which you have to do. Okay, so if you run, or I'll do one thing, I'll install the client version. So let's see, this won't take much space. Okay, we can uninstall it again basically. I just want to see, these are the steps which you have to do. So if you install the ESC also, it starts like this only. Basically, it will start task 1, task 2. So for ESC edition, it will install something near to 40 to 41 tasks basically. Okay, this is a client software which I'm trying to install. So it will install less number of tasks basically. Okay, clear? How to do the DB2 installations on Linux basically? Okay, any questions to this point before we move forward? Okay, so if you don't have any questions, okay, so remember the steps which I have done till this point is I just installed the DB2 software on my Linux server basically. Okay, so this is very important. Try to understand this. Till now, this point, what exactly I did basically, I just installed at very high level. I installed DB2 binaries on my Linux server. Okay, so if you're wondering which location I have, the location where I installed it is opt ibm db2 /v 9.7. This is the location where I installed it basically. Okay, so this is the first step which you have to do for installation. So my first step is done. So first step is copying the binary files to your server. So we have copied the binary files to my server. Okay, so I'm done till this part. I'm done this part. So we have seen the scripts which you have to run. So this is still running. It will be completed in the next 1 or 2 minutes. Okay. Once this is done, there is one more step which you have to do, which is called the second step. So if you do both the step 1 and step 2, which means that your DB2 installations will be completed basically. Okay. The second step is to create instance. We'll see what is an instance and other things. But remember, for the complete DB2 installations on Linux, you need to complete both the steps. So first step is to install the DB2 binaries, which we just completed. We'll go to the next step, which is creation of instance. Okay. So just make a quick note of it. Okay. Okay. So the second step is to create instance. So before creation of instance, let's see what is an instance basically. what is an instance and why should I create an instance? That is an important question. So try to understand what is an instance and why I should create an instance basically. Okay. So remember, when we have seen the architecture of DB2, I'll show you the architecture of DB2 again. I think let me open this again. Okay. So this is the architecture of DB2 which we have discussed a brief about in the last two classes. Okay. So when I was teaching you the architecture, I was explaining you about the coordinating agent. I was explaining you about the prefetchers. I was explaining you about the page cleaners, and we have seen something about the page size basically. Okay. But I also told you like the page cleaners, prefetchers, and the coordinating agents are the processes which are running at the back end. And we have also seen something about the buffer pool. So what is buffer pool? We have discussed at very high level. A buffer pool is nothing but it's a part of your memory where DB2 will bring the data from your hard disk basically. So should we allocate some memory? Yes, you can allocate some memory, which in DB2 perspective we call it as a buffer pool basically. Okay. So the two important things which are required for DB2 to run is, okay, I'll open the new notepad. So at very high level, the two important things which are important for a software to run is process and memory. Okay. So if you install not only not only the DB2, let's say you install you got a software and you're trying to install it, and when you run the software, what exactly happens at the back end? At the back end, the process will start running at the back end, and the memory will be allocated for the software. So those are the two actions which happens at the back end for any software. Let's say I'll give you a simple example basically. Okay, so let's say you have purchased a new workstation from the market. Let's say this you install Windows, and let's assume that you do not have any player with you basically. You know what is a player, right? Which is used for seeing the movies basically. Okay, and one of your friend has given you the latest movie, and you copy to your Windows box basically. Okay, so you have a new brand machine. You have the latest movie with you, but unfortunately you don't have the player with you. Okay, so which means that you have the data, which is movie in my case. Okay, so can you see the movie without a player? Is it possible for you to see the movie without a player? Definitely no, you cannot see the movie without a player. So what exactly the player is doing for you? So, or if you install a player, and if you just try to open the movie with the player, what exactly is going to happen? At the back end, what happens? The player will start some process. The process will start reading the data. So in my case, the data is nothing but a movie file. It will try to play the movie, which means that it will try to open the file and read the data and show it in a picture base. You will get the audio and other things basically. Okay. And when the movie is playing, does it require some space in the memory? Yes. So who is going to allocate the space in the memory? Your player is going to allocate the space. Okay. So at very high level, any software, either the player or DB2 or anything, at the back end, two things are important, which are nothing but the process and the memory basically. Okay. So these are the two driving factors which are important basically. Okay. But in DB2, as we are learning DB2, the important question is who will start the process at the back end and who will allocate the memory? Which component responsibility is to start the process? Say if I install DB2, does it mean that the process and memory will be started? No, it doesn't happen like that basically. Okay, so there should be some component which should be able to start the process at the back end. In my example, when I say process, there should be some component which should be starting the coordinating agent, which should be starting the prefetchers, and which should be starting the page cleaners. Okay, and there should be some component which should be able to stop the prefetchers, stop the page cleaners, stop the coordinating agents. So there should be some component which should be able to start it and stop it basically. Okay, so what is the component called? In DB2 we call the component as instance basically. Okay, so at very high level, what is an instance? An instance is nothing but instance will try to allocate the memory for DB2. Instance will try to start the process at the back end. So these are the two activities which happen when you create instance or when you start instance basically. Okay. Any questions till this point? So instance is responsible for starting the process at the back end. Instance is responsible for allocating the memory basically. Okay, so these are the two action items which happen at the back end for when you create instance or when you start instance basically. Okay, so make a note of it basically. So spelling mistakes you can ignore basically. Okay. So I'll tell you how to create instance, but remember, so having said all these things, so do we have a commands to start the instance? When I say starting the instance, yes, we have commands to start the instance. The command to start the instance is db2 start. Okay. So what happens at the backend when I do db2 start? It will start the process, and it will also start allocate the memory is allocated. So these are the things which will happen if you run the db2 start. Okay. So that's why most of the people, what they do, they run a command which is called db2 start, but you should understand like what will happen at the backend when you do db2 start. So remember, when you run the command db2 start, your db2 will try to start all the processes which are required for the db2 to run. It will try to allocate the memory which is required in the memory basically. So these are the two action items which it does at the backend basically. Okay. Clear at this point? Any questions? Just make a note of it. On the same ways, so can I stop the instance? Yes, you can stop the instance. What will be the command? The command is called db2 stop. Now tell me what will happen if I do db2 stop. What you will do? It will stop the process from running in the backend, and it will deallocate the memory which was allocated before. Okay. So these are the two things which happens at the backend if you stop the instance basically. So these are the two important commands which you should be knowing. When you do db2 stop, basically it will stop the processes which are running in the backend. It will deallocate the memory basically. So this is very much important. So we'll run some commands to see how to start the instance and how to stop the instance kind of thing. So any questions to this point before we move forward? Okay, so just for names, people have different naming conventions. Some people they call instance as DBM, which stands for database manager. So these are alternative names. Some people they call it as instance, some people they call it as DBM, which stands for database manager. So all the names are same. When you are getting in errors, it says DBM database manager or DBM. It won't say instance. So don't get confused. Instance is same as DBM and DBM is same as database manager. So all the three names are interchangeable basically. Okay. Okay. So let me show you in the practically. Okay. Db2 start. I think it's already started. Let's see. Okay. You can see the database manager is already active, which means it's already started. Okay. So can I stop it? Yes, you can stop it. What is the command to stop it? The command to stop it is db2 stop. Okay. You can see the message as db2 stop was completed. Now try to understand that what happens at the backend if you do db2 stop. If you do db2 stop, it is trying to stop all the process which are running at the backend. It will try to deallocate the memory basically. Okay. And can I do db2 start? Yes. So if you do db2 start, what is going to happen to the backend? At the backend, it is going to start the process. It is going to allocate the memory basically. So those are the two things which happens at the backend. Okay. If you remember clearly, we have seen something like how to look at the backend what all processes are running on Linux. Okay, I told you the command. The command is ps-ef, which we have seen in the last class. This will tell me like how many processes are running at the backend. Okay, I just run it. Okay, you can see like there are few db2 processes which might be running. Okay, you can see these are the db2 processes which are running in the backend. So who is going to start this process? When you run the db2 start command, these are the processes which are getting started. Okay, I told you about this process which is called db2 sysc, which is nothing but system controller. Okay, if your db2 instance is running, which means that this process will be up and running basically. You can see this process is up and running. Okay, I'll do db2 stop, which means that it's going to stop the process and it is going to deallocate the memory. Now again try to do db2 ps-ef, which will show the process. Now if you look at the list, you cannot see the db2 sysc process which is running. You can see from top to bottom, you cannot find a db2 sysc process or any of the db2 process not running because we have stopped the instance basically. Okay, so what at very high level, just try to understand like what is an instance. An instance is nothing but it's a component which will try to start the process at the backend and which will try to allocate the memory basically. Okay, so can I start the process and memory at the backend? Yes, you can start the process and memory at the backend. How to do it? You need to run a command which is called db2 start basically. Okay, so can I also stop the instance? Yes, you can also stop the instance by using db2 stop command. So what will happen at the backend? Your process will come down, your memory will be deallocated basically. Okay, so the simple question is, when should I do db2 stop basically? Should I do it all the time, or should I do it every day, or should I do it once in a month or once in a year kind of thing basically? Okay, so remember, you should not be doing db2 stop unless you have some issues or unless you have some maintenance windows. In companies, your instance will always be running, which means that the process at the backend will be running, the memory will be always allocated basically. Okay, don't do db2 stop unless someone has told you to do it basically, because if your instance is running, which means that your databases or everything will be running at the backend. If the instance is not running, which means that your databases is down basically. Okay, so that's the reason in companies people keep on running the instances. They have process which are running at the backend. They have memory which is already allocated and running basically. Okay, I'll show you a simple example so that you can get it from on your own. So let me start it again. How to start it? The command is db2 start. So you can see my instance is started, which means that the backend the processes are running and memory has been allocated. So if you want to cross check it again, ps-ef, you can see some of the db2 process in the list basically. Where is it, man? Okay, you can see here these are the processes which are running at the backend. You can see this process which is running at the backend basically. Okay, now let me run a command called db2 Connect To Sample. I have a database by name sample. Okay, you can see that okay, the connection was successful. So can I create a table? Yes, because you have create a table. Test me. Some dummy table I'm creating. Okay. So you're able to create it. You are able to run the commands. So you are able to work with the database. You are able to create the objects. You are able to do all the things because your instance is up and running basically. Okay. If let's try to do the same things by stopping the instance basically. So you got this point, right? What I'm trying to show it here. When you if your instance is running, which means that you can connect to the database, you can work with the database, you can do whatever you want to do with the database basically. Okay. Let me try to do the same things by using db2 stop. I did db2 stop, which means that my memory is deallocated and my my processes at the backend they stopped basically. Okay. if you run this command, now if you try to connect to the database, the connection won't be successful. You can see the error. Okay, you can see the error message. What it says no start database manager command was issued, which means that your instance, I told you, right, what is database manager? Your database manager is nothing but instance. It says your instance is not running. Okay, so if your instance is not running, no memory has been allocated, no process is running in the backend basically. Okay, so how to make it run? You have to start the instance. How to start it? db2 start is the command basically. So I'm running db2 start again, which is starting the process and memory. So if you try to connect to the database, the connection will be successful and you can work with the databases basically. Clear? Any questions to this point? What is instance and how to start instance, how to stop instance? Okay. So if you look at this architectural diagram, remember, if you create a database, if you create tables, if you insert data, if you update the data, everything will be stored on your hard disk basically. Okay, but these are the process which try to read the data, and these are the process which try to read the data and allocate into the memory basically. Okay, if these processes are running, your database is of no use because the data is still present in the disk, but there is nothing to read the data and show you the data. Okay, so for reading the data and showing you the data, the process should be running at the back end, memory should be allocated, which is done by instance basically. So in real time, the instance should be always running 24/7 basically. If due to some reason, if your instance is failed or if your instance is crashed, which means that you cannot access the data which is present in the databases basically. Okay. Clear? So just make a note of these commands. You can also run the same things once I give you the server and other things. Okay. So just make a note of these commands. You can practice it once you have the once you download the db2 Linux softwares. Okay, so till now, what we are seeing like how to start instance, what is instance, how to start it, how to stop it, and what happens at the backend when you start the instance, and what happens to the backend when you stop instance. So these are the things which we have discussed till now basically. Okay, now we'll see like how to create instance. Okay, as I told you before also, when you want to do db2 installation, you need to do two steps basically. So this is what we have seen first. If you want to complete the db2 installation on Linux, you should do two steps. The first step is basically which is to install the db2 binaries on my Linux server. This we have covered. So which script we have to run? db2 underscore install script, which you have to run, which you already did basically. Now the second step is to create instance. So once you do both the steps, which means that your db2 is good to run basically, you can run the db2 software basically. Okay. Now we'll see how to create instance now. Once the instance is created, we can start the instance by using db2 start. Then you can work with the databases. Okay. The question is how to create instance. This is a very simple thing. Okay. You just need to do two steps. Just try to understand the two steps very simply. Okay. So if you want to create an instance in db2 UDB or in db2 UDB, the first thing which you have in the create instance part, you need to first create a user at operating system level. So the first thing which you need to do is to create a user at OS level basically. I told you already how to create a user at OS level. The command is user add username. Let's say I'm trying to create a user by name db2 inst10, some username basically. So this is the username. Okay. I created a user. Can I set a password for the user? Yes, I can set a password for the user. The command is db2 -t10. Okay. The second step which you have to do for completion of instance is you need to run a script which is called db2 icrt. So you look at the script says db2, I stands for instance, crt stands for creation. So you are telling db2 to create an instance, and you need to specify user ID 2 times basically. There is a reason for that. I'll tell you in the next classes why we have to specify it. Okay. So this is the second script which you have to run basically. So you are telling that db2 icrt means create an instance. For which user ID? Here my user ID is db2 inst10. So give it 2 times. So once you give it 2 times, your instance will be created basically. Okay. So these are the 2 steps which should mandatorily do for creation of instances basically. Okay. Simple thing is create a user, then run db2 icrt script which will create the instance. That's all. It's as simple as that basically. Okay. So just make a quick note of it. I'll run it and show you. So write in the same order so that you can do the installation, you can create the instance, you can practice everything on your own basically. Okay, so let's try to see it. Okay, then you can understand what we are trying to do. Okay, so I'll create an instance. Let me log on here. Okay, db2 ls is there. Okay, so this part is already I installed it previously basically. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Okay, so let me create an instance. As I told you, the 2 steps which you need to do is the first step is to create a user at operating system level. I told you in Linux how to create a user. The command is user add. You can specify the username. I can specify any name. Let me specify some name. I'm specifying it basically. Okay. So I'm trying to create a user. The username is db2 ap10. You can give any name. You can give Raju or anything basically. But I want to, in companies normally your instance name will be in this fashion only basically. So I'm just trying to mimic the company's what is the terminology basically. Can I set a password for this user? Yes. How to set the password? ap10. So I'm trying to type some password. Okay, so the password is set basically. So as I told you, for creation of instance, the first thing is to create a user at OS level. So I created a user, which is done for me. What is the second step? The second step is to run this script, db2 icrt. As I told you in Linux, the way to run the scripts is /db2 icrt -u. You need to specify the username 2 times. So in this, my case, my username is db2 ap10. So I have to specify db2 ap10, db2 ap10. So to specify 2 times basically. So this command will try to create an instance, which means that it will try to copy some binary files. It will try to do some things basically. Okay. So once this command is successful, we can start working with the instance basically. So let's me see. Let's wait for the command to be successful. You can see the output. The output says the command is got completed successfully. So if you look at my steps here, my steps are completely done, which means that I did the installation. I installed the DB2 binaries and I created the instance. So which means that my DB2 installation on Linux is completed. Okay. So can I log on to this user ID? Yes, you can log on to this user ID. Okay. Let me log on to this user ID. I'll show you. What is the user ID? My username is Db2 AP10 and I'll log on with my password. Okay, I think what is the password which I said? Okay. So I log on to the user. Now can you tell me what is the home directory? The home directory will be /home/username, which is Db2 AP10. Yes, okay. So I just created the instance. So the instance is new for me. So can I start the instance? Yes, I can start the instance. How to start the instance? The command is db2 start basically, which is going to start the process at the backend, which is going to allocate the memory for me basically. Okay. Once it does both the things, then you can create a database. You can do so. You can see your instance is created. Okay. So this is a new instance. So no database will be there here. It will say no database is there. So can I create a database? Yes, I can create a database. Create DB some database basically. So this is what the setup will be in companies. So you should understand how to do the installation, how to create instance, how to create databases in it basically. So this command will take some time, but this is a procedure in which you can create instance. This is a procedure in which you can create the databases in the instance basically. Okay. So any questions to this point? Is it clear, like what is instance, how to create instance, how to start instance, and other things basically? Second thing, I'll create one more instance. So just for your understanding, okay, let me create one more instance also. So can I create another instance? Yes, you can create another instance. So as I told you, if you want to create an instance, what are the two different steps which you need to do? The same thing, create user first, then run db2 icrt command. Okay, let me create a user again. I'm just showing you a second example so that you can get better understanding. User add. So let's say I want to create a user with Ravi or something, some simple thing basically. So don't put your names or someone names in companies. Okay, they have some standards basically. So the user is created. I want to set a password for this user ID. I can set it up. Crap. So the password is set. So my first step here is done, which is creation of user is done, basically, which is a simple thing. Okay. The second step is to run this command. I'll run the command which will create the instance basically for me. So how to run the script? db2 icrt. If you look at this script says db2 imans instance, as I told you before, crt means creation. For which user I want to create? I want to create for Ravi in this case, and you need to specify two times basically. Okay. So if you run the script, basically it is trying to create an instance. So once this step is done, which means that your instance is created already. For one user, see, remember, instance is nothing but user. So for one user, we'll be having one instance only. So if you want to create an instance, you should create a user. So one user will be having only one instance basically. It's a one-to-one relationship basically. Okay. In a different approach, can a server have multiple users? Yes. Can my server have 5 users? Yes. Can I create an instance for each user? Yes. So always remember that a server can have multiple users. a server can have multiple instances, and one user is been associated with one instance. Okay, so at very still very high level, user we call it as we call it as OS level, whereas instance we call it as database level basically. Okay, technically user and instance are both are same. User is something like which we define at OS level, whereas instance is something like which we define it at database level basically. So at high level, instance and users are same, and there is a one-to-one relationship between the user and instance basically. Okay, clear, Kiran? Okay, so you can see that the instance is created here also. Okay, so which means that my instance is created with name as Ravi. Okay, so in this server which I'm working on, I have created 3 instances. One is Db2 SAPT, and the recently which I created is instance with Ravi, and I created one more instance with name just created with AP10. So here the database server they created. Okay, so simple fact is my server can have multiple users, or I can say it as my server can have multiple instances basically. So that is acceptable in DB2, that is acceptable in most of the RDBMSs. Instance is not something like which is specific to DB2. If you learn Oracle, it has instance. If you learn SQL Server, it has instance. All the RDBMSs has a concept of instance basically. Okay, clear to this point? What is instance, how to create instance and other things basically. Any questions before we stop it for today? Okay, I'll do one thing. I'll send you the material. I'll send you the software links also, so that you can just try to see how to create instance. You can see these commands like how to create this instance, how to create this instance. Okay, so if you're stuck somewhere, just drop me email. You have my email ID. Okay, so I used to reply immediately. I mean, if I am in meetings, I won't respond. Apart from meeting time, I used to respond it very quickly. Okay, so if you're stuck somewhere, I'll definitely share you the softwares by tomorrow. Just download it. I'll prepare the document like how to start the things also. Just follow it. If you're stuck somewhere, let me know. Okay.
Hello.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sir, I just joined today. Sorry for after instance concept. నేను ఇన్స్టెన్స్ చెప్పడం నుంచి జాయిన్ అయ్యాను టుడే క్లాస్.
ఓకే ఓకే.
బిఫోర్ ఏం చెప్పారు సార్, ఏం డిస్కషన్ జరిగింది? పవర్
ఈ రోజు అంటున్నారా మీరు? ఈ రోజు క్లాస్ then instance ముందు I just told them how to install DB2 on Linux basically.
Okay.
ఒకసారి మీ ఐడి చెప్పండి. శివ కదా మీ ఐడి?
SPR ఐడి సార్ శివ.
ఒక్క పని చేయండి, మీరు విజువల్ పాత్ దివ్య అమ్మాయి తెలుసు కదా మీకు? దివ్య అని భద్ర అని తెలుసు కదా? ఒకసారి ఈ రోజు రికార్డింగ్ సెషన్ పంపించమనండి. తెలుసు అండి రికార్డింగ్ సెషన్స్ బేసికలీ.
ఓకే. ఓన్లీ DB2 బైనరీ డైరెక్టరీస్ ఇన్స్టాల్ ఆన్ Linux.
DB2 ఇన్స్టాలేషన్స్ ఆన్ Linux చెప్పాను బేసికలీ.
అది చూస్తే అర్థమవుతుంది సార్?
Yeah, మీకు అర్థమైపోతే if you want I can go through it again for you basically. No issues with that. Okay. Clear?
Yeah, sir.
Hello?
Yeah, sir. Sir, could you please show me how to install Linux also? Linux software.
See, Linux I can show you, but you won't be doing such things in companies. Okay, so if you want I can show you how to install Linux also basically. But it won't be of any use for you basically in companies, because what really happens is the database team will be different and Linux team will be different. You won't be getting permissions to install it. You won't be getting permissions to run any commands of Linux.
No sir, for install Linux DB2
no.
First I have to use install the Linux server, or directly you can install the Linux DB2.
So what happens in companies is Unix team will be different, DB2 team will be different. Okay.
Okay.
So Linux team will be doing the installation, Linux team will be doing the OS level configurations and other things. Okay.
Okay.
You are supposed to work only on database part. Okay. So in company you won't install Linux, you won't do any changes. Okay. Separate team ఉంటుంది దానికి. మీరు ఆ టీమే చేసుకుంటారు బేసిక్గా. మీరు Linux ఏది ముట్టుకోకూడదు, మీకు పర్మిషన్ కూడా ఉంటుంది మీకు బేసిక్గా చేయడానికి. ఓకే, మీరు ఓన్లీ అదే మీకు నేను ఏం చేస్తానంటే ఐ విల్ గివ్ యూ ఎ లింక్ బేసికలీ. మీరు అది లింక్ డౌన్లోడ్ చేసుకుంటే మీకు లైనక్స్ వచ్చేస్తుంది ఆటోమేటిక్ గా. నేను మీకు ఆ లింక్ అంటే VMware లో వాట్ ఐ డిడ్ ఇస్ ఐ ప్రీ కాన్ఫిగర్డ్ ద VMware ఇమేజ్. ఆ ఇమేజ్ మీరు డౌన్లోడ్ చేసుకుంటే లైనక్స్ వచ్చేస్తుంది. అందులో DB2 కూడా ఆల్రెడీ ఇన్స్టాల్ అయ్యి ఉంది, అది కూడా వచ్చేస్తుంది మీకు. మీరు జస్ట్ డౌన్లోడ్ చేసుకుని DB2 కమాండ్స్ మాత్రమే రన్ చేసుకోవాలి మీరు. ఓకే.
ఓకే సార్ ప్లీజ్.
ఓకేనా? నేను మీకు లింక్ పంపిస్తాను. ఎలా డౌన్లోడ్ చేయాలి అంటే జస్ట్ క్లిక్ చేస్తే డౌన్లోడ్ అయిపోతుంది. కొంచెం టైం ఎక్కువ పడుతుంది. ఇట్ విల్ టేక్ బికాస్ ఇట్స్ మోర్ దెన్ 6 GB ఆర్ సంథింగ్ విచ్ ఐఎమ్ ట్రైంగ్ టు రిడ్యూస్ ఇట్. ఓకే, మీరు
ఓకే సార్.
నైట్ ఎప్పుడో పెట్టి పడుకున్నారు అనుకోండి, ఇట్ విల్ బి డన్ బై మార్నింగ్ ఆర్ సంథింగ్. డిపెండ్స్ అపాన్ యువర్ ఇంటర్నెట్ స్పీడ్ బేసికలీ. ఐ నో ఇండియా ఇట్స్ బిట్ స్లో దేర్ బేసికలీ. ఓకే, సో జస్ట్ put it up and download it. By the time you get up, it will be ready. నేను మీకు చెప్తాను ఎలా ఓపెన్ చేయాలని. మీరు ఓపెన్ చేయగానే మీకు లైనక్స్ వచ్చేస్తుంది, DB2 కూడా వచ్చేస్తుంది ఆటోమేటిక్గా. ఓకే,
ఓకే సార్.
clear? Okay, so then I'll send you by today. Okay, so you'll get it the mail, so you can download it basically. Okay,
థ్యాంక్ యూ.
yeah. So any other questions before we stop it for today?
సార్ ది ఫస్ట్ ది ఇన్స్టాలేషన్ పార్ట్ ఏదన్నా అర్థం కాకపోతే అడుగుతాను సార్.
షూర్, మీరు క్లాస్ మీరు అడగండి, లేకపోతే ఐ విల్ స్పీక్ విత్ యూ సెపరేట్లీ ఆల్సో. ఓకే,
ఓకే సార్. ఓకే, షూర్ సార్. Sure, we'll stop it for today. Okay, just drop me email if you want something else basically. Okay, I started sending some material. I hope all the people are getting it. If someone is not getting it, just drop me your email ID. My email ID is Raju Db2 UD. For people who already did it, no need to send it again. For people who are not getting the material or who joined lately, this is my ID. Just drop me a test mail. I'll include you in the group which I just created. I'll be sending you a lot of material in futures basically. Okay, clear? Okay, so we'll stop it for today. We'll meet again tomorrow then at the same time. Okay, yeah, bye. హలో అన్న, భద్ర అన్న. నా పేరు శివ అన్న, DB2 క్లాస్. అది పంపించడం క్లాస్ అయిపోయిందన్న. నేను ఈరోజు మిస్ అయ్యాను నెట్ లేక. ఓకే ఓకే, థ్యాంక్స్ అన్న.